A boy escapes into the night believing the highway will save him, and the next moment he is trapped inside a car that never turns yet somehow returns to the same cursed town. Then the impossible happens. A newborn thing with wings tears free, not as a child but as a nightmare shaped by fear itself. The pacifier that kept the boy calm snaps away and vanishes down a sewer like a warning sent to the future. This is not a monster story. It is a town repeating its appetite, resetting every 27 years, and choosing lonely kids first. Episode 1 of it. Welcome to Derry rewinds the familiar nightmare and lands in 1962, long before the children of the later films ride their bikes through summer streets. The year is not decoration. Derry's horror is periodic, as if the town runs on a timetable written under the pavement. Every 27 years the buried hunger wakes, and the surface world becomes a hunting ground again. The series treats that rhythm like a heartbeat, suggesting that ordinary life in Derry always carries a faint dread, because the ground remembers what it has done before. The story opens on the night of January 4th at the Capitol Theater. A boy named Matty Clements slips inside without paying, not to show off, but because a movie is the only warm place that does not demand explanations. He is around 10 or 12. Yet his posture is guarded and tired. The pacifier he constantly sucks looks wrong for his age, but it is clearly a coping tool, a private ritual that calms his body when panic rises. The show implies that Matty has learned to soothe himself because nobody else reliably does it for him. Inside the dim auditorium, Matty watches The Music Man, and the choice becomes a subtle clue. The film is built on charm, performance, and concealed identity, and those themes fit Derry too well. The evil beneath the town survives by pretending. It becomes whatever its victim needs to see, shifting from a clown to any other shape that can raise fear quickly. The show lets the audience feel the contrast between the bright movie on screen and the cold reality around Matty, as if entertainment is being used as thin paper over a well. Matty tries to remain invisible in the back rows, but the theater manager spots him and reacts with raw anger. The manager recognizes him as a repeat intruder and treats him as a threat to business rather than a child in need. The chase through the lobby becomes a public shaming, an adult using authority to punish someone who has none. Matty darts behind posters and curtains with the reflexes of someone who has practiced running from trouble. He hides behind a movie poster, and a girl named Ronnie notices him at the worst possible time. Ronnie makes a small decision that changes the moment. She misdirects the manager, sending him to search the wrong side of the hallway, and Matty slips out. The act costs her almost nothing, yet it becomes one of the episode's early signs that kindness can exist in Derry, even if it is fragile. The Capitol Theater also matters beyond this chase. It is a social hub where kids try to feel normal, and the series treats it like a bridge between eras, a location that will carry echoes of this night for years. Outside, Matty runs into the winter night and does not slow down. He does not head home. He heads away from downtown, driven by a need that feels larger than one bad evening. The episode implies that Matty has been pushed to the edge by isolation, poverty, and the constant message that he does not belong. He chooses the highway because leaving Derry seems like the only form of relief left to him. In a town shaped by cycles, that decision becomes the most dangerous kind of hope. At the town boundary, a welcome sign rises beside the road, decorated with a local emblem that will echo later in the franchise. In the darkness, the cheerful message feels like a taunt. Matty stands in that liminal space, neither fully inside nor safely outside, when a car slows down and stops. He accepts the offer because his desperation is larger than his caution, and because he still believes ordinary families can be trusted. The car contains a pregnant mother, her husband, their teenage daughter, and a younger son. At first, the family looks normal, even warm, and Matty clings to the idea that this ride is his exit. The mood shifts in uneasy steps. The daughter opens a container, dips her fingers in blood, and inhales the smell as if it is perfume. The act is too calm, and too curious to be natural. The son plays with spelling in a way that hints at lying and distortion, as if language itself is being bent. Maddie notices the strangest detail of all. The car appears to move outward, yet familiar streets return. There is no turn, no detour, no logical explanation, but Derry reappears around them anyway. The episode uses this to introduce the town's spatial sickness and the predator's ability to fold perception. Escape becomes a mirage. The road itself behaves like a loop, and Maddie realizes he is being carried back into the place he tried to flee. Panic pushes Maddie into desperation. He grabs for the steering wheel and tries to force the vehicle to stop, willing to risk a crash because any impact feels better than being returned to Derry by something he does not understand. His hand presses against the pregnant mother's belly, and the contact becomes a trigger. Pain ripples through her, her breathing changes, and the car fills with the sense that the moment is no longer human. The scene turns brutal and graphic, signaling the series' R-rated approach from the start. The mother goes into an unnatural labor inside the moving car. What should be an act of life becomes a violent eruption of nightmare. The family behaves with a strange steadiness, as if they have rehearsed this ritual. The show lingers on the discomfort of that calm, because calm in the face of horror suggests complicity. In Derry, the most frightening thing is often not a scream but a smile that refuses to break. Maddie watches in helpless shock as the birth accelerates into something impossible. Something emerges that resembles a newborn only in size. It is misshapen and winged, more creature than child, and it can flutter through the cramped cabin like a weapon. The series frames it as a form tailored to Maddie's psyche. The buried evil does not simply attack, it customizes, using personal fears and private traumas as ingredients. The winged infant reflects Maddie's longing to fly away from Derry, and it also reflects the helplessness that seems to define his earliest memories. The creature is a parody of birth and escape at the same time. The winged thing lashes through the air, slamming into seats and glass, and Maddie clings to his pacifier as if it is the last object in the world that still belongs to him. In the chaos, the pacifier is knocked free, hits broken glass, and slips out through the shattered window. It drops into a sewer opening and vanishes into the dark system under the street. The camera treats that fall as important. In Derry, the sewer is not background infrastructure. It is the predator's throat, the place where fear is swallowed and recycled. The sequence ends with the title arriving like a stamp. Welcome to Derry is not announced as an invitation but as a warning. The episode has already demonstrated that leaving is not simple, that the town can pull you back without turning a wheel, and that the monster can shape itself into whatever will hurt you most. Maddie's story becomes the first casualty of this timeline, and the series makes sure the audience understands that children are not protected by innocence here. A small visual detail deepens the connection to the later films. Maddie's pacifier is yellow, a color that will later become tied to another child victim and a stormy street. The series uses color and objects as echoes, suggesting that Derry collects symbols across generations. What falls into the sewer does not disappear, it becomes part of the town's memory, waiting to be found by someone else when the cycle turns again. The episode then jumps forward 4 months to April 1962, widening the story beyond one missing boy. The season change does not soften the town, it only shifts the lighting. Derry now appears through military fences and official briefings as well as school corridors. The Derry Air Base becomes a second stage, introducing Captain Leroy Hanlon and Captain Polly Russo. They arrive as capable officers called in because a nearby nuclear power facility and related infrastructure require oversight, and because the base is running operations that are kept behind locked doors. Colonel Fuller receives them with controlled authority. He speaks of proximity, risk, and responsibility, framing the assignment as practical. But the atmosphere suggests something more uneasy. Restricted zones and guarded language imply secrets nested inside secrets. The presence of such secrecy near Derry matters because the town's supernatural life already thrives in hidden spaces. The series plants the idea that government concealment and cosmic concealment might overlap, and that the town's darkness could attract other forms of predation besides Pennywise. Leroy Hanlon carries history on his face. A scar marks him as someone who has already survived violence, and the story links that scar to wartime service and unfinished operations. He is proud of his competence, yet he is also tired of moving from base to base. He has rented a house in town and intends to bring his wife and son once it is ready. The plan is ordinary, even hopeful. In a narrative like this, ordinary hope is dangerous, because viewers already know Derry targets families and children first. The base also introduces Dick Halloran, a name that carries weight in Stephen King mythology. Halloran is associated with The Shining, a psychic sensitivity that can read emotional residue, sense hidden threats, and notice patterns other people miss. His presence suggests that Derry's evil is detectable, and that some characters may have the capacity to see through the masks. The episode does not yet reveal how much he understands, but his appearance functions like a warning beacon. There are people in this world who can feel the monster before it reveals itself. The show does not rely only on supernatural cruelty. It also shows human prejudice and institutional ugliness. Leroy encounters racist behavior from white officers, a reminder that even disciplined environments contain hostility. Colonel Fuller intervenes and assigns punishment, demonstrating that authority can enforce rules, yet the incident still exposes deeper contempt that cannot be erased in one moment. This matters because Pennywise thrives where cruelty is normalized. Derry's environment is already fertile for fear because people learn to hurt one another casually. Leroy speaks about his past with the blunt clarity of a soldier. He grew up on a farm, worked under a demanding father, and chose the military partly as escape. Fuller speaks of his own father as a career soldier and treats service like legacy. The conversation frames both men as products of inherited pressure. Even before the supernatural arrives, the episode suggests that men in this world carry scars they rarely name. Those scars become openings the town can exploit. Late at night, Leroy tries to settle into his quarters, looking at family photographs and reading local newspapers as if domestic detail can keep dread away. A headline about civic projects appears, including the plan for a large statue tied to local identity. The detail feels harmless on the page, but in Derry, symbols have teeth. The series plants this information as an early seed for future violence, showing how town pride can be twisted into something monstrous. Before Leroy can fall fully asleep, masked intruders break into his room and attack him. They demand classified information about a specific aircraft. Leroy refuses to cooperate, choosing duty over survival, and the assault becomes a test of his resolve. Captain Russo hears the struggle and rushes in, and together they fight the attackers hard enough to drive them back. The men flee into the night, leaving unanswered questions about whether the assault was espionage, internal loyalty testing, or another sign that Derry attracts danger of every kind. The attack also reinforces the theme that secrets and violence operate above ground as well as below it. Derry's darkness is not limited to sewers and basements. It touches institutions, uniforms, and official corridors. Even if Pennywise is the central supernatural predator, the town seems to function like a magnet for aggression, corruption, and concealment. The episode leaves the military thread open, suggesting that future installments will connect it more tightly to the horror unfolding among the children. Back in civilian Derry, the episode introduces Lily Banbridge at Derry High School. She walks into hallways where social rank is enforced through pranks and whispers. Someone has shoved a jar of pickles into her locker. When she opens it, the jar breaks, spills, and turns her embarrassment into public spectacle. The cruelty is petty but effective, designed to remind Lily of her vulnerability. Her friend Marge helps her clean up, but the moment still leaves Lily feeling exposed and unwanted, as if the school itself is part of the town's appetite. The background of the school features a turtle mascot on banners and walls. On the surface, it is just branding, but within the mythology, it points toward Maturin, a cosmic force associated with creation and protection. The turtle imagery appears like a quiet counterweight to the predator beneath Derry, suggesting that goodness exists somewhere in the universe, even if it rarely reaches this town in time. By placing the symbol in ordinary spaces like corridors and classrooms, the series implies that the cosmic conflict is woven into everyday life, not separated from it. Phil and Teddy appear as another pair of teenagers navigating Derry's atmosphere. Teddy is studious and cautious. the kind of kid who trusts books and patterns. Phil is curious, restless, and eager to imagine hidden causes behind ordinary events. Phil notices unusual air traffic near the base and counts planes, joking about secret rooms and unknown creatures. His mind jumps to aliens and frozen monsters, reflecting the early 1960s fascination with space and government secrecy. His speculation sounds childish, yet it also circles a truth. Something not human is active in Derry. At home, Phil's curiosity tilts into invasion when he watches a neighbor through a window, fascinated by what he should not see. The moment hints at how easily adolescents can slip into harm, especially in a town where empathy is not strongly modeled. The interruption of the scene does not erase the flaw, it simply exposes it. Derry breeds small violations the way it breeds gossip, and the show suggests that this habit of looking at others as objects is part of the town's moral rot. The boys talk about Maddie's disappearance, which has lingered in town rumors for months. They speak with a detached tone that protects them from responsibility. They assume he must be dead or must have run away, and the absence of a body becomes an excuse to stop thinking about him. Their conversation reveals a harsher truth. They were never truly Maddie's friends. Maddie's mother offered them candy and invitations to his birthday because Maddie had almost no one. Phil and Teddy accepted the attention and still did not show up, leaving Maddie alone on the night he vanished. Lily's bond to Maddie is more personal. She wears a bracelet with a turtle charm that connects to a memory of kindness. When she touches it, the episode slides into a flashback of December 31st, 1961. Lily and Maddie spend New Year's Eve together on a closed viewing deck that Phil and Teddy once used as a secret hangout. The deck overlooks Derry and feels like a small island away from the town's judgment. They share snack packets that include toy prizes, and the random prizes become symbols of luck and fate. The prizes are lopsided. Lily keeps receiving rockets, always the same kind of toy, and she is tired of them. Maddie wins a turtle figure and gives it to her, a small act of generosity that matters because Lily rarely receives kindness without conditions. The gesture becomes the source of the turtle charm she wears later. The flashback frames Maddie as someone hungry for connection, willing to give away his own good fortune just to make someone else smile. That generosity makes him even more vulnerable in Derry. On the deck, Lily also reveals the grief that dominates her life. Her father died in a pickle factory accident when he tried to help with a malfunctioning machine. He was pulled into the machinery and killed. Lily blames herself because she delayed their departure for a moment, and her mind has built a permanent guilt loop around that delay. She has avoided his grave for a year, unable to face the finality of stone and dirt. The show portrays her guilt as a constant ache, a soft spot the monster can press whenever it wants. As midnight approaches, fireworks crackle across town. Lily and Maddie stand at the edge of a new year while carrying the weight of the old one. Maddie leans toward closeness, hoping affection might prove he matters. Lily cannot accept the moment. She feels overwhelmed, uncertain, and frightened by intimacy. She pulls back and leaves, apologetic but unable to explain herself. Maddie reads the withdrawal as rejection, and his face hardens with a loneliness that has become familiar to him. The flashback ends with Maddie walking away alone, a quiet prelude to the night he will try to run from Derry forever. Back in April 1962, Lily carries that regret like a stone. She sits at home, stares at the turtle charm, and replays the moment she left Maddie behind. That is when the supernatural pushes into her daily life. In the bathroom, she hears Maddie's voice echoing through the sink, singing the same tune connected to the film he watched at the Capitol Theater. The sound is intimate and wrong, as if the plumbing has become a throat. Then two blood-smeared fingers slide out of the drain and retreat. The image is impossible, yet it is built from details Lily cannot ignore, and that is exactly why it works. The scene is not about proving Maddie is alive. It is about exploiting the desire that he could be. Lily wants to believe the voice because belief would soften her guilt. The evil beneath Derry knows that longing is a hook, and it chooses a familiar song to make the hook feel safe. The gesture of the fingers reinforces the illusion, offering physical proof while staying just beyond reach. The series emphasizes that Pennywise does not need to invent fear in Derry. It only needs to remix existing pain until it becomes unbearable. Lily tells Marge what happened, expecting concern. Marge responds with anxiety about reputation rather than empathy. She urges Lily to keep quiet so people do not label her unstable. The advice feels less like protection and more like self-preservation. Lily realizes that even friendship in Derry has boundaries drawn around social comfort. She walks away feeling more isolated than before. The episode keeps returning to this pattern. The town abandons people first, and the monster simply takes advantage of what is already abandoned. Teddy becomes the next to feel the town's pressure. He asks his father whether a child could survive for months in the sewers, framing the question like a detective searching for a rational explanation. His father answers by referencing real-world atrocities and human cruelty, using history as a blunt weapon to silence fantasy. The response is meant to ground Teddy, but it plants disturbing images in his mind. That night, Teddy reads Detective Comics and his room light flickers. The lampshade seems to shift into something made from skin with faces stretched across it, turning his father's historical reference into a personal hallucination. Teddy panics, and the fear fractures the ordinary household. When his brother rushes in, the room looks normal again, as if the horror has been switched off at the moment of witness. The episode uses this to show how the monster isolates its victims. It reveals itself in private and retreats when adults arrive, ensuring that children sound unreliable. Teddy tries to describe what he saw, but he is treated as dramatic or confused. The gap between experience and credibility becomes another weapon, leaving him trapped between terror and disbelief. The next day, Teddy shares his experience with Phil and Lily. Phil believes him for a reason that feels painfully realistic. Phil has known Teddy long enough to recognize a bodily tell. When Teddy lies, he stays steady. When he tells the truth under stress, nausea rises. Phil watches Teddy's body betray him and decides that the fear is real. Combined with Lily's sink incident, the kids accept that something unnatural is moving through Derry. They also know that adults will not take them seriously, and that getting labeled as unstable could destroy their lives. They decide to investigate alone. The trio turns to the library, treating newspaper archives as their only honest witness. Phil's younger sister Susie follows them out of curiosity, and her presence adds a fragile edge to the scene because she is younger, smaller, and more likely to be targeted. In the archives, they find reports about Maddie's disappearance. Police suspected violence and questioned people repeatedly, but no body surfaced and no evidence held. The last person known to have seen Maddie was Ronnie at the Capitol Theater, the same girl who helped him evade the manager that night. The kids find Ronnie and ask questions. Ronnie is tired of being questioned because police have already pressured her, and her family has felt the suspicion that follows any unresolved disappearance. At first, she resists. Then the kids mention the voice in the sink and the specific song, and Ronnie's expression changes. She admits she has heard strange sounds from the theater basement too, including children crying and singing when no children are present. The confession pulls the theater into the center of the mystery. It is no longer a place of entertainment. It is a doorway. Ronnie leads the kids back to the Capitol Theater after hours. The choice is risky, but it is also logical within the pattern of Derry's horror. The theater is connected to Maddie's last known movements, and it contains lower spaces where sound can travel into pipes. Ronnie decides to project the Music Man, believing that repeating the film might draw out whatever is reaching through drains and sewers. The decision turns a movie screening into a ritual. The kids are not just watching a film, they are baiting a predator with their own memories. As the projection runs, grief and guilt surge through the room. Phil and Teddy remember Maddie's birthday on January 4th, the night he disappeared. They remember the candy his mother offered them and the invitation they ignored. They feel the shame of knowing they treated Maddie as an obligation rather than a friend. Lily remembers New Year's Eve and her withdrawal. Each memory sharpens into a bruise. In Derry, guilt is not only an emotion, it is a scent that can be traced, and the monster follows it the way sharks follow blood. The boundary between screen and room begins to fracture. Maddie appears inside the film image as if he has been spliced into the real. The sight is not comforting. It feels like accusation made visible, and the series makes it clear this is not Maddie returned. It is the evil wearing his face as a mask. The screen also shows echoes of earlier horrors, including the children linked to the highway nightmare, compressing separate events into one collage. The theater becomes an extension of the predator's mind, a place where time can be remixed to heighten fear. The winged infant returns, and this time it refuses to remain on the screen. It pushes through the projected image as if the projector has become a portal, spilling into the auditorium with wet, frantic motion. The episode makes the transition deliberately surreal, as if the laws of the theater have been rewritten by hunger. The creature is small enough to feel like a twisted child, yet its violence is adult and predatory. It attacks without hesitation, proving that the opening sequence was not a standalone shock, but a signature of what this series will do when it feeds. Phil and Teddy have only moments to react. The creature grabs them, lifts them, and tears them apart with brutal efficiency. The gore is graphic and immediate, underlining the series' claim that it will be grim and uncompromising. The violence also carries emotional weight because it is tied to guilt. The kids who refused friendship become victims in the very place where Maddie tried to find comfort. Derry punishes neglect with a cruelty that feels ritualistic, as if the town itself approves of the offering. Susie tries to survive by hiding, and Lily reaches for her, gripping her hand with the desperate instinct to protect someone smaller. The gesture is the most human moment in the entire sequence, and it is also the moment the monster destroys. The creature finds them and pulls Susie away. The theater becomes chaos, and even the projection booth turns into a trap. Ronnie has been operating the projector upstairs, but the episode suggests the evil can lock doors and restrain movement the way it can bend roads. Ronnie struggles against an invisible force that holds her in place until she finally breaks free and races down to the auditorium. Ronnie drags Lily out of the room, and the escape feels less like victory and more like being allowed to live for reasons the characters cannot control. In the lobby, reality crashes into detail. Lily looks down and realizes she is holding part of Susie's severed hand. The object is small, unmistakable, and horrifying, and it forces the supernatural into a concrete form that cannot be dismissed as imagination. Lily's scream becomes the episode's final note, not only a reaction to gore, but a reaction to knowledge. The town's hidden truth has been forced into her hands, literally, and it is heavier than she can carry. The episode ends before authorities arrive, which is its own form of dread. Viewers familiar with Derry understand that the town will not respond with clean truth. It will respond with rumors, convenient explanations, and misdirected blame. Children will be described as runaways, tragedies will be smoothed into silence, and the monster will continue feeding while adults pretend nothing is wrong. The cliffhanger leaves surviving characters trapped between experience and credibility, and it hints that the next episode will explore how they cope with being believed by no one. Even in its first hour, the episode seeds references that connect this timeline to the larger story. The yellow pacifier falling into the sewer echoes a later child in yellow rain gear, linking victims across decades through color. The welcome sign imagery and the mention of a planned Paul Bunyan statue foreshadow a future moment when civic pride becomes an instrument of fear. The turtle motif at school nods toward Maturin, suggesting a cosmic counterforce that exists even if it rarely intervenes. A graffiti reference to Alvin Marsh hints at the human abuse that also lives in Derry, reminding viewers that some monsters are fathers and neighbors, not cosmic clowns. Teddy's surname hints at family lines that will echo forward, implying that trauma and survival will travel through generations. As a prequel, Episode 1 also sets expectations for the release rhythm and the scale of the story. The structure is built for weekly tension, with each episode peeling back another layer of Derry's past and ending on a hook designed to pull viewers forward. The show signals long-range ambition by framing its arc across multiple seasons, treating Derry itself as a character with decades of history still buried. The episode's blend of brutal set pieces, psychological manipulation, and mythic references suggests that the series will alternate between personal tragedy and larger world-building. For viewers who follow episodic horror the way they follow mystery shows, the pacing echoes the weekly build of modern serialized hits, and it invites the audience to return each week for deeper explanations, more Easter eggs, and more proof that Derry never stops feeding. In the aftermath, the surviving characters are left with two battles. One is against a predator that can imitate love, shame, and memory, and the other is against a town that prefers neat explanations over messy truth. The weekly structure promises that every new episode will dig deeper, revealing why the 27-year clock exists and how Derry learned to cooperate with it. Until that history is exposed, the streets will keep smiling, the sewers will keep whispering, and the cycle will keep turning again soon.